Dude, hello. We're good. Hey, good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody tonight. Welcome to DABS, fourth Friday story hour. You gotta love tonight. This is a great show we put together. I hope that everybody is doing well, stay safe, and get out and vote. I gotta tell you that. Get out and vote. That's more important than anything in the world right now. Get out and put your mask on when you go outside or go inside a place anywhere you are in the United States. Tonight, our lineup is that ladies, start talking, you better, and I just kind of scratched my head and I said, I'm starting. We have four amazing storytellers who've been all over the place telling stories out of the country, some not things. Let me get started here. Let me bring the first storyteller up stage here. She is an amazing, she chose to be a storyteller as a teacher way back because of her grandmother who told stories. So she decided to take on the name of Maddie, and she is now Maddie from here on out when she tells stories, representing and taking on the legacy of her grandmother, which is absolutely awesome. She also is a business owner, a writer, and a trainer. She enjoys telling stories of all ages. She's been everywhere to tell it to everybody. Taught students. She's even sat down and taught students how to tell stories for us, which is absolutely awesome here, which is great. We love the mere fact that she does some of the things she does. Many told stories in youngster schools, campfires, churches, anywhere that is needed. She developed to reinforce. She also decided to learn to tell stories, reinforcing how to do workshops, as she did a thing going on there tonight. Maddie Odin, if I pronounce that right, she has an excellent story for you. Take it away, Maddie.
Yes, this is Maddie Oni. My story, my mother's bouquet. On this beautiful summer day when I was 5, sometime in late July or early August, I was eager to go outside. This is a time when children went outside to play. I ate my breakfast with my father, which was customary, because my father was a believer that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. And my father got my sister and I dressed because we had to pick up my mother, who was at work. And so off we went. My mother was a nurse at Detroit Receiving Hospital. Upon our return from picking up my mother, I had to pick up my clothes, make up my bed, and do other things that my mother might have directed me to. In other words, I had things to do, something called chores. It seems to me that today, children don't seem to understand that task at all. However, let's move on with the story. Well, after my mother got home and we were all home, my mother had to comb my hair. Now, I don't want you to think that when we went to pick up my mother, that my hair was all over my head, because it was not. My father would put my hair in a ponytail either on top, on the side, or in the back. It may not have been combed, but it was out of the way. So when my mother finished combing my hair, I was ready to go outside. I had on a sunsuit, sunsuits tied on the shoulders, and it was short, kind of like shorts, but shorter. No, this is not the precursor to booty shorts. This is a sunsuit. Sunsuits expose your legs all the way up to the thigh, and there's no sleeves. It is really very comfortable, kind of like a romper, and it's really great, unless you wait till the last minute to go to the bathroom, or you're in the park and the mosquitoes are hungry. But anyway, back to the story. Well, the sun was out, it was shining bright, and it was warm. I was outside and I looked all around my street and saw all the lawns were manicured, and some even had flowers. Well, the block was getting ready for the annual Block Club meeting and presentation of the best garden best flower bed, best front yard, and best backyard. Now, my father had won several years in a row. He had won the best front yard, he had won the best flower bed, he had won the best vegetable garden. Now, I personally think he should have won the best backyard because we had a swing set. Doesn't that count? Well, anyway, they didn't think so. Now, my father had a green thumb, but really what it was is a black thumb because he had a relationship with the soil and flowers and everything in nature. My father turned sand into black, rich soil. And black, rich soil is a sign of life. And because he turned this soil, this sand into soil, we had bountiful vegetable gardens every year. Well, I also want you to know that there was a lot of competition when we're talking about having this contest. And everyone wanted an award. But back to the story. Well, the birds were singing, and this was going to be a great day, so I thought. My sister, I was playing with my sister for a short while until my friend could come out. And when she came out, she came down to my house. Now, we played hopscotch at first, and, then we decided that, we had to talk a little bit. And we also made a decision to go to her house and sit on the front porch. Now, on the front porch, we had some important things to discuss, like our siblings, and I believe her mother was pregnant at the time, and training wheels. And I had my training wheels off my bicycle, but she didn't have hers off hers yet, and I wanted to know when she was going to take hers off. And of course, what our mothers were doing and what we were going to plan for the day. Important stuff to 5-year-olds. Well, as we were talking, we made a decision to go to the backyard and sit on her back porch, where we could finish our conversation about our plans for the day. As we started talking about things, one of us saw a stick and we decided that we should draw in the sand draw in the dirt or write in the dirt. So we were drawing and writing in the dirt at the bottom of the stairs. As we were doing this, I looked over into Mr. Johnson's backyard. And I told Michelle, look at all of those flowers and the beautiful colors. And she was looking, she said, yeah, there's so many colors. And we were just having, this deep conversation about the color of the flowers. And then we thought, our mothers deserved bouquets of flowers that looked like Mr. Johnson's backyard. And we knew it wasn't Mother's Day because that's usually when we saw our mothers get flowers. So we had a great conversation about that. But then we decided that we needed to go into Mr. Johnson's backyard. Now, somewhere along the way, we decided that our mothers, needed a beautiful bouquet of flowers, just like Mr. Johnson's backyard. And in his backyard, there were roses, there were azaleas, there were black-eyed Susans, chrysanthemums, just a whole host of things. And they were all so beautiful. Now, I do want you to understand, no, we did not know the names of these flowers at this time. We're 5 years old, but we did know roses and black-eyed Susans. And we learned the names of the flowers later. But anyway, as we are talking about our mother's need to have a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and we wanted to give them a bouquet of flowers, just as beautiful as his garden, we were really pondering that thought. Like, Well, somewhere between the time we left Michelle's backyard and we got to Mr. Johnson's backyard, we had scissors. And I can't remember who, when, or how we got scissors, but we got some scissors. And Michelle decided that we could use some wax paper and wrap up the flowers like a bouquet, and we tie it up with a rubber band. Now we have all our supplies and we are ready now. So we have our scissors because we don't want to tear up the backyard. Oh no, it is beautiful. We don't want to tear it up. So we get to work. We start cutting Mr. Johnson's flowers, and we looked up when we had cut all of his flowers. There was not a flower left. The flower bed was bare. And then we meticulously laid out the wax paper so we could put the flowers on it. And we made sure that the longer stems were at the back. And so when we wrapped the paper ever so carefully, we wrapped it and we were so meticulous. And when we got finished, we had the biggest bouquets for our mothers. We had 2 of them. They were huge. And we were so proud of ourselves. Oh my, we were really happy we had done this for our mothers. Well, we decided to go home and to give our mothers the flowers that we had picked. I walked into the house and gave my mother these beautiful flowers. And she said, "Oh, these are really pretty." And I beamed. I just stood up real tall and straight. I was so happy my mother liked her flowers. And she put them in a vase. Then she asked me, "Where did you get the flowers from?" I didn't lie. I told her I picked them. And before she could ask another question, my baby sister started crying. Well, unbeknownst to me, my baby sister gave me a brief reprieve before my freedom was taken away from me. Well, I went back outside, and just as I was going back outside, my father pulled up in the driveway. I said, "Hey, Daddy, hi." I'm still so happy and really feeling good about what I did. And I go 2 doors down, and I'm talking to my friends. And then I noticed that Mr. Johnson is coming down the street. Well, that didn't set off an alarm because my father and Mr. Johnson spoke all the time. But my father's expression changed. And he went into the house. And the next thing I knew, my mother was calling me inside the house. Well, when I went in, my mother had the flowers in her hand and she threw them down into the garbage can. And she started talking to me, but I couldn't figure out what she was saying. I was crestfallen. All my hard work. Oh. And the next thing I knew, my father, whom I lovingly call Quick Draw McBelt, had his belt above my head, and the only thing I could figure out or think about was the fact that what that belt was going to feel like when it touched my skin. And he began. He said, "You didn't have permission to be in Mr. Johnson's backyard. You didn't have any permission to pick his flowers. Who gave you the right to go in his backyard? What were you thinking about?" Well, while I was trying to dodge the belt and answer the question, I said, "I just wanted Mama to have a beautiful bouquet of flowers, and they were so pretty." Do you know that made him even more upset? He said, "Why didn't you pick your flowers from your own backyard?" I didn't think about that. At the time, picking the flowers from Mr. Johnson's backyard sounded like a really good idea. Well, I got a spanking. Well, actually, at that time, I called it a whipping. but to be politically correct, we're going to call it a spanking. And I had to stay on the porch. I couldn't go off the porch. And I cried and cried and cried. And the only thing my mother did was just look at me. And when I could go off the porch, the only thing I could do was to weed the vegetable garden or weed the flower bed. Now, later I found out Michelle had the same punishment. How is it that our parents could give us the same punishment? They didn't call each other. How did that happen? I wonder to this day.
It was beautiful. No, we have to be willing, flip that vice versa. I got to be willing.
And Michelle got the same punishment, the spanking, had to stay on the porch, and so forth and so on. She also had to help Mr. Johnson replant his flower bed, which she enjoyed. Oh, well. That year, my father did win Best Lawn in the Front, Best Garden. He was mentioned for Best Flower Bed, but he didn't win. Do you think I had something to do with that? I think he should have won anyway. Well, later I found out that Mr. Johnson wasn't really angry at us for picking the flowers. As a matter of fact, he thought it was kind of funny. He said, we didn't yank up the flowers, we didn't tear up the yard, and actually everything was really even in the backyard. Well, in my mind, didn't that count for something that we did right? I don't know. Well, as time goes on, I do not plant flowers outside, and neither does Michelle. I have lots of flowers, and I really enjoy my plants, but they're all inside. And when I receive a bouquet of flowers, I really, really appreciate them. And if someone hasn't given me a bouquet of flowers and I want one, I will go buy them. Now, I do want you to know that throughout my mother's life, I gave her many bouquets of flowers. On her 80th birthday, I had delivered to her at church where she volunteered the largest bouquet ever. It was so big that she had to have someone carry it to the car for her. And when she got home, she had to have someone carry it into the house. Now that is my story. And that is my mother's bouquet. Thank you.
All right. Oh boy, the antics of Cheryl and my sister Michelle are just too much. That's those two. That's Michelle. She's talking about a partner in crime. I tell you, boy, Normandy was something else when we were growing up. So glad I was so little. See, I wasn't the one always doing stuff. See, my sister did some things. Told you. Everybody thought my sister stayed in the house, never took them out, never did nothing. You see why now, because Cheryl was the one that got in a whole bunch of trouble much earlier. Moving on. Thanks, Cheryl. Moving on. This next storyteller, I tell you, she is up and coming, doing all kind of things. She is an educator, a scientist, and a cultural story at the Charles H. White Museum in Detroit, Michigan, which she is doing absolutely phenomenal work over there. If you're ever in Detroit, get a chance to see her visit the museum, do look her up, John 2 Gray, Mama Jatu, and she will take you on a tour. Her tours are absolutely awesome. Something takes you right into the actual history of what goes on in our Black history as it goes. Story about Paradigm. I a little shocked about this really a little bit. I'm trying to really curious the action, but as a person I know a long time ago, she has been one of the long up and coming storytellers, but she's been hiding the wings doing stuff at the museum. Please give a warm welcome to Mama Jatu.
You know, a lot of times we walk around and we look at things and we wonder about things. So one day I took the Escape out for a drive. My intentions were to catch a thought. I marveled at this extraordinary day, but yet something was strange. I felt a change coming. The sky was an electrifying view with many curious shades and hues. I found myself on the island and drove around Belle Isle till I found a place to park. Something strange happened. An irresistible urge came over me. I could feel it urgently. I've always loved to swim, but this was coaxing me to jump in. I swam through the water, past the Great Lakes, and viewed the falls of Niagara. Such a beautiful place. Swimming out to the ocean, my heart started to race. I felt change happening in my body taking place. What was my faith that was taking place? Suddenly, I was diving deep. The change had occurred. I was breathing under the water. I was becoming a fish, a beautiful mermaid. I have now become free to swim the 7 seas as I have metamorphosized, a shift in my paradigm. Thank you.
Where's Tone?
That's
There we
all.
go. Here I go. I don't know. I lost my connection for a few minutes there. So I catch the recording. John, too, I think you're all done. I take it. Is that it? Okay.
Yes.
Moving right along. Sorry for the technical difficulties on my end. I just lost everything for some odd reason. Let me get to the next storyteller here. She has been a part of DABS for a little while now. She is has gotten so deep into it that she's gone and got on the national level with the National Association of Black Storytellers, which is our umbrella that we're under as an affiliate, Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. But she is doing amazing things here and there. She is a mother, grandmother, and a storyteller. She enjoys reading, cooking, studying the African American history, biographies, and Black folklore. She also enjoys crocheting. I have to get her to make me something there. For the last couple years, 52 years, she has worked as a children's librarian, social worker, and a registered nurse, helping everybody in the world. She is now beginning the stages of doing guitar. I got a guitar for her. I can help you out, don't worry. And she's a djembe drum dealer. We got another drummer, guys, in the mix. her, she wants to tell a story tonight about the heartbeat of life. It's a woke story, supposedly, my understanding. It's about our ancestors that are watching and our children who are waiting and wondering, what will we do? Please give a warm, warm welcome to Miss Janice Barnett.
Good evening. Good evening. Such a pleasure to be with you tonight. I'd like to dedicate this story to all the boys and girls, mothers and fathers, and children who during this very challenging time of COVID have determined that they will still reach out and find an opportunities to educate their children. The challenge of COVID, the crisis of COVID, has brought with it so many changes. In addition to the threats to our health and well-being, all of our institutions are changing. They are continuing to change as they adjust and adapt. Churches, schools, government, healthcare, everything is changing. My focus tonight is on the changes in education, because I was raised to believe in the transformative power of education. The mantra of my family was, education is the key. We heard that every day, breakfast, supper, and dinner. Education is the key. I really had an opportunity to really find out what that meant when I began the work of researching and preparing for my oldest son to go to school. As I researched, the trending statistics were appalling. The high rates of illiteracy, the very high rates and the likelihood of Black males being referred to special education, and it being more likely that a Black male would be escorted out in handcuffs from school than walking out with a diploma. Those statistics were so appalling to me. I mean, somebody ought to scream. I just had to look around to friends and family to see that those statistics were real. They weren't just on paper, they were real. My brother, who was teaching in prison, he was teaching in a male prison in Chicago, and he said he was teaching creative writing. And he said the major work that he had to do, the biggest part of his job, was undoing all of the feelings of inadequacy and failure and low self-esteem that education had put upon those men. He said some of those men were brilliant. They were artists. They were writing poetry. They were writing stories. He said many of those men could have been published, but the biggest part of his job was helping them to unlearn all of the terrible feelings of failure and inadequacy that they had learned in education. I made up my mind. I was like every other mother. I believed that my children were bright, able, and I was determined they were going to have an opportunity. I promised God and 12 responsible, no stuff-taking Black women that my sons would not be a part of those horrible statistics. I tried everything. I tried public schools, Catholic schools, Lutheran schools, Quaker schools, military schools. I could write a book. I could write a book on the things not to do to help young men learn how to learn. Because I made most of the mistakes, but I was determined and I did all that I could possibly do. But I found that there was one common denominator in everything that I tried, and that was teachers. Teachers had a very key role in making a difference in young children in education. My middle son, and believe me, my sons were not really overly enthusiastic about school. After they got out of third grade, they really weren't that interested. They were more interested in going to the barber shop than going to school, but I was determined. This was the beginning of a new year. The two youngest were in 4th and 5th grades. The middle one was in 5th grade, and we had just started Chrysler School. We were trying to get ready for the new culture, the new requirements, and they were a little withdrawn and a little sad about leaving their old school and very reluctant about the new school. But one day, when I picked my middle son up from school, I noticed he was coming to this car smiling. And he hadn't done that since we arrived there. He was smiling in the car, and this conversation was about what he wanted for dinner, etc. When we got home, I noticed he had started his homework. I was both shocked and surprised because usually I was the initiator. Let's get started with our homework. But he had gone to his room and he had started his homework. I went into the room to see if I could help and see what he was working on. He looked at me very confidently and he said, "Mommy, my teacher thinks highly of me." I was not prepared for that. I said, and how would you know that? He said, "Because she told me." I said, "Really?" He said, "And also I'm going to have to come early to school tomorrow because I am going to work with John and he and I are going to be raising the flag for the school's Pledge of Allegiance. So I have to be there 15 minutes early." I was surprised. I have to admit, I was very surprised. The next day we were there at school early. That year was a remarkable year for him. That teacher, who was a beautiful person, had made a young black male feel that he was important, that he was valued, that she thought highly of him, and that she believed in his ability to do well. And he performed for her. He came alive in education. I have to say that most of the teachers over the 3 boys were okay. A few were awful. A couple were spectacular. But one took my breath away because of her openness and her caring and her belief in my son. I believe, along with Frederick Douglass, that it is better to raise strong children than to repair broken men. I hope that we have the political will, the financial will, and the social will to make these changes that we need to make during COVID-19. This is the Chinese define crisis as a dangerous opportunity. This is our opportunity to make some changes, some serious changes in the education of our men and women and our children in school. They deserve the best. They deserve much better than we're giving them. And we should use this opportunity to make good things happen. They're our future. Thank you.
Hey, all right. Oh, thank you. Oh, I told you she was something else. Boy, look at coming along. Get it to go, Janet. National stage, Carnegie Hall. Here you come. Just a matter of time. Absolutely awesome. Keep it moving. Bring it our last speaker for the night. I've known this person for quite a while. We go way back, just like I do with a few other people. We've known each other a long time ago. And we started doing some things in Toastmasters together. And then all of a sudden she decided she wanted to be a storyteller. She came to one of our concerts at the Carr Center in 2011. And at that very moment, she got hooked and said, "I'm going to be a storyteller. I'm going to get out there and do it all." And she has been doing it absolutely all. Her favorite people she likes to do reenactment with is Maya Angelou and Coretta Scott King. If you haven't seen that, we have a video of that. And I will be putting it out soon so everybody take a look at it. She does a phenomenal job at that. She's a school teacher, retired school teacher that's done things for schools and kids. She's our actual DABS school advocate. She is the liaison between us, the Detroit Public Schools, and all schools in Michigan, making sure that we get in some of the schools to do some storytelling and sharing those things. She's presently working on the project so that during the Zoom scenario, then hopefully we can get some Zoom stories done to the kids that way so that they don't miss out. But tonight she's here to do some stories. She's performed in the Flint and Jackson Storytelling Festival. She's a member of Story League, DABS, International Association of Black Storytellers. She's been an actually National Storytelling Festival as well. Here's some history facts about her real quick here. She is the ambassador of the family literacy that has authored and parented child literacy guide, Plant a Seed, Read 101. There are activities to motivate children to read. She is also the first Michigan Senior Olympics who placed third in the National Senior Olympics race walk. I'll race you after this is over, Gwen, whenever you're ready. I'm ready. I can beat you walking. Tonight, it took her this long to figure out how to do some things as far as storytelling. It's been a frustrating moment. It may take a day or a week, but it took her exactly 30 years and to find to thank Elisa Simpkins for her story today. Ladies and gentlemen, please bring to the stage Gwendolyn Lewis.
Was it 45 or 47 years since I started teaching at Detroit Public Schools? You know, then technology was totally different. Let me tell you, my first year, when we wanted to show a film, we used this huge film projector, reel to reel. And sometime when people wanted to give workshops, they call it professional days now, they would bring in a circular container which had slides. They call it the carousel projector. Now we use PowerPoint. Those were the days, that first year. I escorted our children out of the building the third Wednesday of June at 3:15. Gave them what we used to call the report card, beige card with the attendance on it and what they achieved throughout the whole year. As I walked back into my room, I heard through the PA system that the school would close at 4 o'clock and that we had the opportunity to work on our records from 9 to 3 on Thursday and 9 to 3 on Friday. I was the first one there on Thursday because being a librarian, I only had time to fix my records. I also had to close my room. Now, let me share with you what all this is about. The records were the blue sheets with all the grades on them. Then the white cards, and finally, the manila folders. That was going to be taken care of by the secretary. My biggest task was to prepare a bulletin board, inventory all of the books in the library, check in overdue books, and then cover all those books so that the elements wouldn't find them or bother them during the summer. Well, I started with the blue sheets, made sure they were in alphabetical order, just as I did the white cards and the manila folders. Placed them to the side. Now, it was still getting close to 11 o'clock. My friends were coming in, but I knew that I had more to do than they did. So I continued and just said, I have my apple. I have my apple. I have my apple. My first thing that I did was check in my overdue books. Now, they became overdue because they were lost under the desk and in the lockers of the kids. And the teachers brought them down at the last minute. After I checked the books in, I went to the shelves. Now, to take inventory, you will need a drawer then, a drawer from the card catalog that had the title, author, and subject card for each book. I would sit down, going one by one with the books. Well, that was taken care of one by one with the books, one by one with the books, one by one with the cards, one by one with the books. That took the whole Thursday. Now, knowing that Friday was the last day, I thought I could complete everything. Friday, I still was the first one in the building. And this time, I decided that I will start on the bulletin board. So I prepared the bulletin board. Now then we had stencils. We would have to trace the letters with pencil and then cut them out with our hands. Placing the letters on the bulletin board, placing book jackets around it. I saw welcome back for the fall. Covered it. I was good to go with that. Then I remembered I have to get the records to the office around 12 o'clock. So the first thing I did with the records was to put the blue sheets on a table, alphabetical order, the A's on the pile, the B's in the pile, the C's, and so forth. Then, as it got near 12 o'clock, I grabbed up the white cards and the manila folders and stood proudly in the office door, knowing that everything was going to be okay. 12 o'clock, the office door opened, and I gave the secretary my books and manila folder and cards. She looked through it and said, "You're not finished." I said, "Not finished? It's 12 o'clock. I still have to cover my books." She said, "You're not finished with these cards. You need to place grades from the blue sheets onto the white cards and the manila folders." I looked at her. I said, "When did this start?" "Nobody told me." She gave them back to me and said, "You have to complete this before you leave." It was already 12 o'clock and we only had to 3 o'clock to finish the task. I was so angry. I threw the cards on my table and next to them the manila folders. I went where the blue sheets were, but you know, I said I had placed them in order. Now, other teachers had placed theirs in there, so I had to look at BA, BAR, BRO, and get those, all my students' blue sheets from the pile. Place them in alphabetical order and sit down simultaneously, put grades with a pencil onto the white cards that I got off the blue sheets. It wouldn't have been so bad if I had only 10 children to attend to, like they did in special ed classes, now called special needs. Maybe 20, maybe 30. I had 35, and that was normal for that time when I started 47 years ago. Well, I worked and worked and worked. It was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then all of a sudden, Alice Simpkins was standing at the door telling me she had finished. She had closed her room up, ready to go home. Now, I almost in tears shared with her exactly what my dilemma was. She didn't skip a beat. She placed her purse in a chair, began to go through the beige folders, throw away incidental material. She gathered the white cards I had completed and began to put grades on the manila folder. We worked and worked. 3 o'clock, I heard the office door close, and the secretary was coming down the hall into my room. Why could I hear it? Why could I hear the echo? Because we were the only ones in the building. She said, "Lucky you, the custodian will be here till 6 o'clock." I was okay with that. Alice Simpkins continued to work diligently. Well, it was 4 o'clock, and then